Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I want to discuss a topic that I've thought a lot about over the years, and many fans have discussed in depth ever since the Future Trunks arc, or really the Cell Saga of Dragon Ball Z. And that would have to be, why is Future Gohan, the original version of Gohan and the Gohan that we see in the Future Trunks timeline, so weak? Why is Gohan not as powerful as he's depicted in being in the other arcs that precede, or even as a child in the Cell Saga? Well, I think that there's a lot of different reasons that we can break down as to why this is the case, and of course, evidence leading into him being weak, because the fact of the matter is that many people think that this is a plot hole, that this is out of line with Gohan's character, but in a lot of ways, I actually think this is way more realistic than most people make it out to be. So let me get in depth into that right now as I bring up the manga and discuss exactly why Gohan is so weak. Okay, so when we actually take a look at Trunks the story, or the history of Trunks in the manga, the original version of the story that Akira Toriyama wrote many years ago, what do we see? We see that everything begins with Gohan training future Trunks. And of course, we can immediately see that Gohan isn't really being depicted as being all that weak, really. I mean, after all, him in his base form with just one arm is actually fighting against a kid Super Saiyan Trunks. Maybe you could just say that Trunks is unnoticeably weak for some strange reason in this case, but nonetheless, as we could see, Gohan's doing great. However, we get a much better estimate about just exactly what Gohan's level of power is here as he discusses this right now, saying that Trunks has improved a lot. He might even leave him in the dust in a few months, and then Trunks says, if only the sensu plant hadn't died out, you could have gotten your arm back. Yeah, but what's gone is gone, right? This is kind of a reference to him losing his arm in a battle against the androids, and Gohan saying, I'm just glad I could escape it all. Something that I'll get a little bit more into in a little bit. But nonetheless, as we say down here, Trunks references Gohan wearing Goku's gi, his outfit that he wore to battle time and time again. And he said that, Bulma said that it startles her every time she sees him in that gi because he looks so much like his dad. But what Gohan goes on to say is very revealing and interesting about his level of power, which is, I made it hoping it would make me as strong as my dad before he died. But I guess it's not just the clothes. So when it comes down to it, the question is Gohan here actually saying that he is weaker than Goku was when he died? I think that that's really the implication here, that even as a Super Saiyan, as we see momentarily, let me actually bring that panel up right here, we see when Gohan goes Super Saiyan, he is someone who is able to tap into that legendary transformation. He still isn't as powerful as Goku when he died. But what exactly does that mean, Goku when he died? Well, the last time within the course of the timeline that we would have known Goku to be a Super Saiyan and to be of a certain level of power in the original timeline would have to be when he returns from Yardrat in the original timeline, in the History of Trunks timeline, and the other variations that you can argue exist. So when Goku returns from Yardrat, we get a great estimate of his power. In the original timeline, Goku was able to defeat King Cold and Frieza, which I discussed in a video that you could see up here. However, not just that, but we also see him square off against Trunks, who also is a Super Saiyan that easily killed King Cold and Frieza. And the two of them kind of go to war a little bit here. Not really, though. But Trunks, goes to use his sword against Goku, and Goku powers up his finger. He imbues it with enough ki to repel the attacks of Trunks, who is also imbuing his sword with ki. And as you can see right here, the two of them have this kind of sparring match a little bit, where Trunks is trying to, inflict maybe some degree of damage upon Goku using that sword, and Goku repels every single attack and strike. Now, of course, a lot of people are like, oh, this means that Goku is vastly more powerful than Trunks, but as we could see right here, Trunks says, oh, the stories were true. No, you're even greater than the stories. This sword sliced Frieza in half, and then Goku says, you weren't coming at me with all you had. So Trunks wasn't really going full out here, even though we see him putting a little bit more effort into it, attacking Goku with that sword. And Goku, of course, is repelling it with the finger. You can argue, which one was imbued with more ki? Does it really matter if Trunks is using a sword, or could he use like an inflatable rubber tube thing and, cut somebody in half with it too if he puts enough ki into it? Probably. Maybe he could rip out one of his hairs and chop you in half if he puts enough ki into it. I don't see why not. So this gives us an estimate of Goku's power. He's definitely more powerful than he was on Namek when he fought Frieza. In fact, Frieza was more powerful as well, so Goku had to be to defeat him. But nonetheless, he still isn't, let's say, many, many times more powerful than that. And he only goes on to become that much more powerful through a significant amount of training that happens afterward, as I'll get into soon. But nonetheless, as we know, Goku was still around this level of power, as far as we know, in the original timeline and the History of Trunks timeline, before he eventually died of the heart virus. So let's say that Goku stayed relatively around this level of power. That would mean that Gohan, when he goes Super Saiyan, would be even less powerful than that, and arguable to be weaker than future Trunks as a Super Saiyan. Maybe we could argue they're actually around the same level of power. However, nonetheless, what we could say is that Gohan was at least weaker than this Goku that we see right here after he comes back from Yardrat and is, showing his finger game is really good. But nonetheless, as we go on to see, there's more estimates that kind of give us an estimate of Gohan's power in the manga. Something that is not existing really in the anime version, because they really overly dramatic and take this in a very different direction than the manga does, which I'll talk about very soon. Now, as we see, Gohan goes to the city to attack the androids to try and stop them. However, as we know right here, when we actually go back to a previous panel, these are kind of strewn about in different places on my computer a little bit, Gohan goes to knock out future Trunks, and before he does that, he goes in to this fight knowing that he's not going to make it, that he's going to die. And so he tells Trunks, if I die too, there won't be, or if you die too, there won't be anyone left to protect the Earth. You're the last one with a chance to beat those androids someday. So Gohan already knows he's going on a suicide mission. He attacks 17, he goes in, and then we find out a little bit more information where 17 says, it's been a while, Son Gohan, a whole year, hasn't it? I'm amazed you escaped alive after all that. I've been training hard. You won't beat me this time. It's your turn to lose. And this is where we get the very, I guess I would say iconic, but I don't know how many percentage of the Dragon Ball fan base actually knows about this version of the story, where we have this scene that's very revealing about Gohan's power comparative to the androids, where 17 says, our turn, sorry to disappoint, but I didn't even use half my power last time. Now, a lot of people might be like, oh, 17's just bluffing. Look at Gohan's face right here. He's not bluffing. Gohan knows, he's shocked. He's like, what? I won't let you escape this time. You're dead. So again, that's another little implication that's brought up here as well, that 17 and 18 have actually been letting Gohan and Trunks escape during their previous encounters so that they could actually have some fun, because if they wiped them out, there would be no one left to oppose them or even kind of slightly rival them in terms of power on the Earth. They would just be going around wiping out helpless civilians like you could see right here. So we don't even see the fight take place in the manga. All we know is the expression on Gohan's face says it all. He's dead. 17 rushes in to kill him, takes him out right off screen. And then what ends up happening? Well, as we see dedicated in the anime version, when they flesh it out, they have a fight where Gohan actually puts up a significant more amount of power more of a fight in the anime, where he's actually able to not only fight 17 but also 18 before eventually getting overwhelmed and defeated. That version of Gohan probably a lot stronger than just half of 17's power right here. But in the real version that Toriyama created, not that Toei created, what do we see? Well, we see that he just gets killed off screen. He's not even worth the full power of 17 and 18. He just gets annihilated. Trunks goes to the city, and he finds his body right here, dead on the ground. He has that scene of him freaking out, smashing the ground. Although in the anime version, what actually happened was that we see that Trunks, turned into a Super Saiyan at this point, whereas I showed you all before, he already was a Super Saiyan sparring with Gohan. So A lot of people say that this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. After all, how is it possible that Gohan, as an adult in his 20s at this point in the story, as a Super Saiyan, is still so much weaker than 17 and 18? How does that make any sense? Well, there's a lot of factors that people don't really take into account when it comes to this, specifically just how different the story of this future Gohan, the original Gohan and the History of Trunks version, differs from the main timeline Gohan. One of the biggest things comes down to training and the purpose behind this level of power that the main version of Gohan has. After all, what happened in the main timeline and the unseen timeline never occurred in the original timeline or the History of Trunks, which is that Trunks showed up and revealed to Goku and everyone else that the androids were going to come, that they were going to kill everyone, that Goku would die of the heart virus, and so everyone needed to be prepared. As I can go on to show you momentarily. Everyone finds out about this, they're all shocked, and then they realize we're going to train or we're going to die. So Gohan actually goes on to train with Goku for 3 years straight during this period of time, where, as we could see, they become significantly more powerful. Vegeta's training in the time chamber, or in not the time chamber, the gravity chamber, and everyone trains for those 3 years until eventually they go on to fight 17 and 18, they thought, really 19 and 20 initially. So that's kind of the thing. Gohan would have already been vastly more powerful in this incarnation of Gohan at this age than he ever would have been in the original or History of Trunks timeline that we could see him from here. And that's just there because, as we know, in the original timeline, Goku would have already been dead by this point when they're all racing off to fight the androids. So Goku not only didn't train Gohan, but also additionally, Gohan kind of, by the time that the androids showed up and started wiping everyone out, was significantly less prepared for that, and then was basically left on his own to kind of fend for himself for many years. He didn't have any guidance showing him many of these things, like, for example, when we take a look at what happens in the hyperbolic time chamber, where Gohan also trains for yet another year, or at least close to it, with his father, who specifically is training him how to become a Super Saiyan. Gohan has no idea that he could even do that. He's like, wow, me a Super Saiyan? And the Goku's like, yeah, of course. And I'm going to make you even more powerful than me. And then we actually see that training as Goku is guiding him. We could see right here where Goku is saying, for example, let's see if I could find that, where Goku's saying, no, you're just trying to make your chi bigger. Rage wakes it up. You've got to get mad. And then Gohan's like, easy for you to say. I can't just stand here and get mad. I know. Imagine that Cell's trying to kill me, but I've never seen Cell. Freeze it then. I don't care. And then Gohan starts to rev it up. He starts to imagine that and taps into the Super Saiyan form. And eventually, during the fight and during the whole sequence in which Cell is trying to absorb 17 and 18, what do we see? Gohan is finally trained by Goku to become a Super Saiyan. So again, he's being very specifically guided by his father, someone who already is a master of the Super Saiyan and would go on to actually master and become a full power Super Saiyan or grade 4 very soon with Gohan, how to do this. Whereas this Gohan in the future, or really in the original timelines that we've seen also, with Cell, was never trained on how to do any of this. He kind of just had to figure it out on his own how to become a Super Saiyan, because the only ones that we know of at the time, Goku and Vegeta, were both dead. So not only is Gohan at a massive disparity where he's missing 4 years of training, including one of them in a special dimension, which is way more beneficial than the Earth, being trained by his father directly, as well as more training from Piccolo, who was also dead, but he also had to become a Super Saiyan on his own. And Gohan isn't as natural of a fighter or as natural of somebody in that mindset comparative to Goku or the other Saiyans. So he doesn't really even think that, oh, maybe there's actually a transformation beyond Super Saiyan. Maybe I could become significantly more powerful than just training and getting physically stronger in my base form. Maybe I can go to next forms like the grade 2, the grade 3, the grade 4, Super Saiyan 2, 3, and etc. He never does any of that because he has no idea about any of these things. It's only through the masterminds of Goku and Vegeta, those geniuses when it comes to fighting, that they're even able to figure out that there are other transformations beyond Super Saiyan that they could tap into. And I know a lot of people might try and use a rebuttal of Ultimate Gohan or Gohan Afterward as an example. You know, we go here, for example, to Gohan after he gets his full potential unlocked and he fights against Buu. And he's so powerful, he can annihilate this Buu, basically, who is vastly more powerful than Super Perfect Cell and everyone from this particular period of time. And this Gohan is only like 16 to 18, depending upon, you know, the math that you would do. So at that point, the question is, why was Gohan so much stronger here compared to where he was, again, in the future? But again, that's also because Gohan had all the training that we saw. He became the Super Saiyan 2. He had Goku's training and guidance and so on. And he also underwent a magical ritual that not only brought out his potential, but took him even further than that, and also gave him a special state, the ultimate state, which made to where he didn't even need to transform to tap into his full power and potential at will. And also, you know, again, another thing that we need to keep in mind is just like with Dragon Ball Super, when Gohan rages out and becomes Beast just because Piccolo's getting, you know, beaten in front of him again, you know, or something else along those lines where he just snaps, he gets another giant rage boost and he's stronger than Ultra Instinct or something. Well, in the original continuity that Toriyama was writing here, this is very different. Characters couldn't just get angry out of nowhere and get trillions of times more powerful out of nowhere or whatever it is in Dragon Ball Super at this point. They can't just unlock a million transformations just because they get angry. They have to have some degree of training and mastery to do that. Even when Gohan went Super Saiyan 2, he already fully mastered the initial Super Saiyan form to the point to where it made logical sense for him to go into the next one. So we can't just say, for example, that it makes perfect sense for Gohan to be way more powerful after this than here. Not to mention, let's think about it in terms of the continuity. You know, the characters are constantly saying they're reaching their limits in the Cell Saga and the Buu Saga of Dragon Ball Z. There wasn't this idea that Toriyama was conveying that they're just infinitely potentialed, you know, to where they can just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger forever. Eventually, the human and the biological beings that these beings are would need to hit some sort of limit. They would not have an infinite rise of power that would constantly be multiplied and multiplied and multiplied exponentially. You know, Goku, for example, need to be dead for 7 years of training under King Kai just to be able to reach Super Saiyan 3. So it doesn't make sense when you think about it that Gohan would somehow be able to just stomp the androids just because he trained on his own and, you know, didn't have anywhere near the guidance that he had before, whereas in Dragon Ball Super, people can train off screen and then they're suddenly as powerful as Super Saiyan Blues out of nowhere. That is way less logical than anything we see in the manga involving Gohan in this level of power. Also, I know a lot of people don't really like to think about this, but additionally, another thing is the fact that Toriyama's entire narrative goal here was to make this a very dark timeline, a very dark and serious event. It had to show that the androids were so powerful and so threatening to make the inevitable win of Trunks that much better. You know, Trunks paints hope on the side of the time machine. He goes back in time to bring hope to the future, to save his time and the time in the other timelines that he creates. And so in order to do that, in order to bring out that light of hope, in order to bring everything to the highest possible zenith of storytelling, he had to make everything as dark and as down for our characters as possible. Think of The Empire Strikes Back and then the end of Return of the Jedi, for example, or, you know, the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers compared to Return of the King, things like that. You have to sometimes go in a really dark, serious, downbeat, depressing direction before you can have that triumphant finale that we end up getting at the end of this arc. So ultimately, when it comes down to that, That's really the reason why Gohan, even after training and everything like that, was so much weaker out of universe, because the fact that they needed to present this no-win scenario so that Trunks would be desperate enough to go back in time using Bulma's time machine to inevitably bring about the victory through him in the future. The one that Gohan made sure would be alive and ready to defeat the androids, as he says. Eventually he does, and he defeats Cell in his future and brings peace to it until the future Trunks arc. Ugh. But that is basically the entire reason why Gohan is so weak in the future, why he is logically weak in the future and not just like, a plot hole or something that a lot of people make it out to be, and ultimately why this is such a scenario that occurs in Dragon Ball Z. But alright guys, that is why future Gohan is so weak. Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Do you agree or disagree? Also, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.